the one bit of advice he did say to me, whatever sport you're playing, John, it's either the man or the ball. The two can't go past you at the same time.
It gives me great honor. It is a privilege to be able to say, Spud Murphy, welcome to Graystones. How are you?
Oh, thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, beautiful morning here in Wexford. So looking forward to this. Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. It's great.
Great stuff. No, absolutely delighted to have you on. Really am. I was thinking before I sat down today how much of what we kind of admire and respect about Greystones Rugby Club was built by, you know, you and your team in the AIL in the early 90s. And I just can't wait to talk to you about it and get to hear all you have to say about your memories playing for the club.
Jeremy, yeah.
I guess we'll start. 1982, you'd leave school and you'd go on a tour of Canada.
It's 82, Jeremy, 82.
82, yeah.
82, yeah.
Yeah. You'd leave school. You go on a tour of Canada. What are your memories of that tour? And kind of mixing it with the older crew, because like at one stage you were a young teenager trying to make your way in the world.
Well, actually, yeah. Well, I know my parents weren't normally pleased, Jeremy, because I jumped out of school to go, really, you know. And but it was a last minute decision, really, and I remember vividly it being in Dublin Airport heading to, I think we're going to Schiphol for some reason to go to Canada, and the excitement and the team, and I mean Roger Boyd and Piers Kerr and the whole lot of us and all gathered in our bed. It was a fantastic opportunity. But I think I might have went with, I think I had $300 Canadian dollars with me, but I know I came home with more money because I didn't spend anything. I wasn't out spending anything, you know, so it was just a fantastic trip and a fantastic opportunity. But one of my memories of it really was Simon Doyle. He was extremely fearful of flying, and for some reason there was a lot of internal flights as well as getting there at the time. And every time before we get off the plane, we'd have to sing a song, because every flight was like a night in gyms, because everyone was drinking and everyone was smoking on the flight. So and we were singing. So Simon wouldn't let him get off the plane until we sang a song to the pilot, because he was so fearful of flying. I just remember every airport where sit last on the plane having to clap the pilot off the plane, you know. But my other memory was the plane seemed to be going very low. I don't know. I always, Simon kept saying, I can see the waves breaking underneath the plane. I said, no, we can't, Simon. We couldn't be flying that low. But it was a great trip. It was a fantastic trip. It was just, but it was like, I was minded so well. Like, yeah. As I said, I definitely came home with more money than I went with, you know.
Did you learn a lot about, like, because you're the 18, 19-year-old on that team, in later years, did you kind of take a lot of the learnings with you, like on how? Yeah,
well, I was learning so much from different people. I mean, even Brian O'Neill. I remember Brian O'Neill and people like that, and one of the Moonies, the Cole Moonies, and
Pat Mooney, yeah.
On trip, and one of the Eugene O'Gorman. So we had tremendous characters, and they all had a story to tell, and they all had their arm around me, you know, giving me advice and everything else. So I had plenty of that, you know. Greg Litch was on the trip, which was great. Noel O'Brien and the wing. We had a great trip, and I played all the games, which was even better because I could play hooker and wing forward. So the lads were so busy enjoying themselves, you know, Murphy would play anyway, just put me on the field. So yeah, it was fantastic. It really was fantastic. The rugby was extremely hard. It was very, very physical.
Really, yeah.
Very, very physical, yeah.
Where in Canada were you touring?
Well, when we landed in Vancouver. Oh, I think we might have played a game in Vancouver, and then we went out to, is it Stanley Island, is it, or Vancouver Island? We played in a tournament over there, which was a 2-day thing, which was very, very difficult and very physical. And then we came back and we played in Calgary, and then we finished off the tour in Montreal, which was huge. Yeah. I remember one of my fondest memories with the first day we arrived. I think it might have been a Thursday or a Friday, but we were playing a match the next day. It was very, you know, And someone decided it was a curfew, you know, you had to stay in because the match the next day. And of course, a curfew to me was I was going to, you know, stay in. So I arrived down in the lobby of the hotel, and I don't know what time of the evening it was, but I couldn't find anybody. I couldn't see anybody. I couldn't see anybody from Greystones, you see. So I started chatting to the fellow behind the counter, the reception, and we're chatting away. And I explained to him what was happening. He said, "Oh, look," he said, "I'm finished at 10 o'clock. He said, if you want to come up to my room, we can watch videos." So I said, "Yeah, that sounds like a great idea." And sure, 10 o'clock came. I still hadn't seen nobody from Greystones. So into the lift I get with this fella, and we pressed the button. I think their floor was on the top floor or something. And halfway up, the lift stopped and the doors opened. And who was standing at the door? Only Pierce Power. And Pierce says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm just going to the room here to watch videos with your man." Well, Pierce said, "Just grab me by the scruff of the neck." Said, "No, you're not. You're coming with me." Little did I know that the whole team were next door in the pub, you know, celebrating, you know. So that was it.
Oh, brilliant. Very good, very good. Yeah. We flash forward 5 years later, 1987. You, Nick Popwell, went out to Australia. You went to Brisbane, and you play for the South Rugby Club there. At that stage, Australian rugby was light years ahead of Irish rugby. Like, what was your experience out there playing rugby in this like new continent? And in particular, I know that Tom Lawton was playing for South, who was the Australian hooker at the time. And what you learned from him.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was of course, I was just sort of drifting through the seasons at that stage, and Nick and Ben McCauley said, "No, we're going to Australia." I said, "Oh, I'd love to go there." So I just made a decision that I'd go, and we had a right party before we went, but we got there really, and actually, I mean, one of my first memories was we met this big guy, this guy called Mick Elmery. He met us at the airport in Brisbane, and he was about 6'4", and he was 2 widths of Nick, you see. And we're driving through the streets of Brisbane, and Nick was sitting beside him in the front seat, and the man was making, you know, Nick look small. And Nick said to me, "What position do you play?" He said, "I'll play loose head." And Nick said, "What team do you play?" He said, "I'll play in the 4th grade." And Nick was going, "Oh, well, if he's in the 4th grade, we're in trouble here." But we said them reasonably good. And the first thing we found out was so competitive. Training was very competitive, Jeremy. Like, you know, we trained as a squad. So we beside Ben and Nick were picked in the reserve grade, but that Thursday night was competition. Like, so we're hitting bags, we're hitting humans. Like, at that age, I had like Tom Lawton, Rob Lawton, Dan Crowley, as a fellow called David Cody, who would have captained Australia. He was a very like a Pierce Power, really big, athletic, and very aggressive. So the training, I said to Nick the first night we were there, like, we need to get our game face on here because, you know, we're going to slap around the place. So we learned very, very quickly that, you know, this was going to be a huge challenge for the three of us. And the other thing we learned very quickly is don't go on the ground, don't fall on the ground, because if you fall on the ground with the ball, you were open to being kicked, Jeremy. That was it.
No way. Wow.
You were physically rucked out of it, and that was the end of it. Like, and that was accepted. So he didn't go to ground, or if he did go, he got up off a reasonably very,
very alive. Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
A huge standard. What I found about them was they were so competitive. Like, they do anything just to get that extra half mile, really, or the half an inch, really. Jason Little was there too, and Tim Horan. So they had some wonderful talent.
Wow.
Yeah, so wonderful talent. Really did. Fantastic.
Did it improve you as a player going over there?
Re-energized me, I'd say, more than anything else. You know, I don't think if I hadn't gone and hadn't experienced it, I would have kicked on when I came home. Really, it certainly gave me a new focus, because I was very. I felt I had to really prove myself all over again, if you know what I mean. It was a huge challenge, and because it made me a better player. It made me smarter. It made me. I mean, you're talking about Tom Lawton. The first thing I remember about Tom was we're doing live scrummaging, but he met me head to head. Like, and this was just a little tip, you know. So stories like that, when he'd put his head and close the gap between the loose head, and so I'd know where to go. Only into him, you know what I mean? So intimidating, like, you know, well, to how to intimidate you and how to put you off. So I learned a lot of that stuff, which got me into a lot of trouble. But it made me a better player, yes. I was much more competitive, you know, much more competitive. And it re-energized me in terms of my fitness levels too. And, control what I could control really, and sort of disregard the rest really apart from there. So it did certainly make me a better player, much more determined, much more determined.
Brilliant.
Yeah, but we had I mean, I'm still in touch with people out there, which is
really wow.
Fantastic. Yeah, and there's a particular guy called Trevor Tresh who I lived with for years. Like only for him, like I just learned so much from him, like about everything in life really. But it was a huge turning point in my life. Anyway, it's tremendous. Yeah, I mean, tremendous fun. Should be fantastic fun. We'll be like. We were live in April morning, like this morning, 22 degrees, and they said Nick would be out lying with Ben sunbathing. Like the locals are going around freezing cold, but 3 hours that was always the way, yeah. Of course, in '87, then it was the World Cup, World Cup. So I mean, we were in Ballymore every day in the 4XL, watching Ireland play. They played Tonga in the first game. We had such a party, which was fantastic. But even the night prior to that match, like we were in Rosie O'Grady's drinking with the players. I mean, it was different. It was just so.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a lot of Irish there too, playing with other clubs. So there was a great community if you wanted that sort of thing too. So probably a great time.
So you'd be over there for 2 years. You'd come back 1989, and this is kind of the start of the most successful, most fruitful era for Greystones Rugby Club, certainly from a senior perspective. The idea forms to have an All-Ireland league. Previously, clubs played provincial leagues.
Yeah.
So they decide that for 1990, 1991, there's going to be an All-Ireland league. And your placing in that is decided on where you finish on the provincial league that season. For Greystones to get into the AIL, we had to beat Blackrock away. And a bit of trivia, Collie Dunn was playing for Blackrock at the time. Before he put on the white hat and joined Greystones. But by all accounts, the atmosphere in that game was absolutely electric up in Stradbrook. Collie actually scored a try for Blackrock to put them in the lead. Then in the very last play of the game in injury time, Johnny Murphy drops a goal off his bad foot to win the match. Greystones are an
Johnny Murphy have a bad foot. I don't think Johnny Murphy. Yeah, two good ones. Yeah.
Greystones are an AIL team. Do you have any memories of the match, but more so of what the expectation was going into an All-Ireland league?
I do remember it was sort of a group of 3 matches. I know that we played Wanderers at home in Dr. Hickey Park. I think it might have been a couple of weeks prior to that. It must-win game as well. And there was a huge crowd at that. I remember a huge crowd at that. And I know Nick scored a tremendous try that day. I think he might have ran 40 or 50 yards to score a try. And Alan Keys, did he get in the corner? So it was building up. This match against Rock was building up. But I think we had to go and beat Lansdowne as well to make it really head-to-head. And I think we might have tripped up against Lansdowne. We were beaten by Lansdowne, but Blackrock had lost as well. So it kicked on again. I remember that day in particular, I think the weather was extremely bad, and we seemed to spend a lot of time in our own half, and the wind and Stradbrook was blown down. But Johnny, I think, might have played out half because Jerome was injured, maybe. And Johnny just kept right or left foot, just kicked the ball back over him, and I think Collie might have had an opportunity, but might have messed it up or something, or kicked the ball dead, and we got an opportunity to kick off, won the ball. And Johnny, of course, was to give him the ball, and I think his right foot or his left foot might have been blocked. He just switched over and kicked it with the other one between the bar and was over. And so I do remember that particular game, but yeah, I mean, memory would be vague of it, but it was great excitement. It was such a thrill, but it was a batch of 3 games more so than just one in Germany, really, which made it special. Yeah. So we won 2 of the 3, which was great against. I mean, to beat Wanderers at home that day was really because they were
the top team, weren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, they were full of internationals. I remember huge crowd of that, like. And Pat Kenny and Matthews in the back row, so we were underdogs, but we were very smart. I mean, we've got some Mick Dempsey too in the back row with huge experience in Blackrock, and Tom Morley. And we're well organised. We really were. That team was well organised. The 80s we weren't as well organised. We got, in the early 90s we seemed to get a bit more organised about what we're actually trying to do on the field, which was important.
Yeah. It must have been a big change though, because I mean previously your away matches were, I don't know, to Stradbrook or to Monkstown or something, but now all of a sudden you have to go to Belfast or Galway or Cork or Limerick. Yeah,
and put a lot more pressure on people because the 80s were a tough time, the early 90s and 80s were tough times on people too. And like guys who were married and starting jobs, so it was difficult to get time off on a Friday afternoon. I head off in the bus or the train. We used to go more so than the bus, but we had great fun and we had great memories and we had great cracking. I mean, and particularly when the early 90s came with supporters. I mean, John O'Neill and I'm thinking of Paul and Jude. These are just names coming to my head. We were always a group of supporters who organised everything and really supported the team through thick and thin, really, which was great,
Yeah, yeah.
Massive, yeah.
But we become an established AIL team. The 1991-92 season would be a big year for the club. That was the first year you were captain.
Yeah.
We also would win the Floodlit Cup.
Oh, yeah, that was great.
The All-Ireland Floodlit Cup as well, which is a pretty impressive achievement. But I think from what I've read, the big news story of that season was the arrival of Peter Muller down to the rugby club. Peter, for anyone that's unfamiliar with him, he'd go on to win 33 caps for the Springboks. He would have played in the 95 World Cup, but he was injured. He played in the 99 World Cup. So for a 5-6 year period, he was the best centre in South Africa. But 91, he joins Greystones, and by all accounts, was the driving force in getting the team promoted into Division 1. What are your memories of Peter and the impact he had on the team?
Where do I start, Jeremy? Where do I start? Peter, well, he lived with myself and Nick for a start up in Richmond Park.
Oh, really? Yeah, no way.
that was an eye opener, yeah. But oh God, but I lost my mother there recently. She used to tell me a funny story. The mother used to come up on a Thursday when we were in Richmond Park, and she'd hoover the house for myself and Nick, you see. And she arrived up this Thursday. She didn't know Peter was there, of course, But Peter was in the front room and he had his legs out in front of watching TV in the middle of the day, and the mother came in with the hoover. But of course, he wouldn't move his feet. He was from South Africa. He was used to people waiting on him. But the mother wasn't too impressed. And I remember she rang Nick giving out shite about this new found the house that he wouldn't move his feet. So Nick came home and he was giving out, and I said, well, you can't really give out to Peter, Nick, because that's what he's used to, like people looking after him. So, but he was a bit slow getting going, but he loosened up and we took care of him. But the first match we rode, I think we were playing UCD. We're playing UCD in a match in College Park, and of course, them days we were there an hour and a half before kickoff in the changing room, Jeremy, waiting to get going. We didn't go outside, we were warming up inside, and Peter looks at me and says, what time does the match start? And I said, well, 3 o'clock. And he said, well, it's only 2 o'clock. So he went off. He just went off. He just left the dressing room and he came back in about 10 to 3, got his kit on and went out and he was phenomenal, really, with ball in hand. The only thing I worried about him was he was very aggressive and he had so much other talents that maybe when he went back to South Africa that he goes, they play a very physical game, but I think he might have lost his soft hands. But once he got the ball, he was incredible, And another member played Wanderers, and I remember Mark Wise, who played out half for Wanderers, but he came back to play for Graystones a number of years later. But we just put in, I think Pierce or maybe Paul McNaughton put Peter on defensive line at outside half, and he just runs straight up to Voisey, and Mark would panic and pass the ball on, and Peter would just move right across the back line with the ball and onto the wing around the touch. They're just, he just
afraid of him, yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely phenomenal player,
Yeah.
But he got a job in St. George's training, and he became a lot more interactive, and he really started to blend in great, and we took him down to spend a weekend with the Rigneys, because I was pretty patty with Des, and we brought him down to Port Alicia. That was an eye-opener now, God bless him, hurling country, what I mean, with the Rigneys.
Yeah.
7, and we're trying to bring points, trying to keep up with 7,
That year, off the back of hard work by Peter Muller, as we said, we beat Blackrock in Greystones. Stephen Bishop was playing for Blackrock.
Oh yeah. I think that was the match Peter scored in. Yeah.
Amazing to think that an All Black was playing, in the All Ireland League. That's how competitive it was at the time. Absolutely. But to get promoted into Division 1, we'd have to go up north and beat CIYMS by 40 clear points, which is exactly exactly what we go and do. There's a picture, I'll see if I can get it, of you and Roger Boyd just after a full-time whistle, and man, the look in your eyes, the intensity, the stare is there. what was the thoughts of going up to Division 1? Were you ready for it? You ready to take on that challenge? You were good enough, like the club was good enough and was in the right place. Was that
in them days, Jeremy, too, and I'm sure that I don't know what it's like today, but especially in the 80s and 90s, we had huge strength and depth. Huge strength. We had guys playing on the J3s who were more than capable of coming up and doing a job on the senior team. So, and we had a Metropolitan Cup team, which was very, very strong then too. So we had plenty of depth, loads of depth. So we're only going to go one way. And so the difficulty in that match with the North that day was we had to win by so many amount of points. And I think that made us very, very nervy in the first half in particular. There was a lot of knock-ons and there was a few instances into the game. There were a bit unsavory between ourselves, if you know what I mean. We're arguing with each other, and some people said things they probably shouldn't have said or did things they shouldn't have said, but it was just the heat of the moment and the pressure we were under at the time. And I think Michael Carney might have scored just midway through the first half, and we got another try up, and then things started to flow a bit better and everyone started to relax. So it was a huge relief when the final whistle went, because it was a bad day. There was a lot of muck, but so we were under pressure, but no, it was a great night afterwards. I do remember that, but it was great. Yeah, and Roger soldiered so long, really, you know, from a guy to come from Galway, a farming background, which was fantastic. And, you know, he'd soldiered through the early days with me, I suppose. And he was in that trip to Vancouver again. I still owe my money from that, because I think when we were leaving Vancouver, unbeknown to me, you had to pay to leave the country, and I had no money left. So Roger paid that. It might have been $7. But yeah, so he soldiered a long time, and Roger got one cap for Leinster, which was with me, and it was one of my fondest memories, actually getting a cap with Roger, because he was such a good player. I'd say he was underrated too, because he was a great man in the line. I was like, you know what I mean, a lot of time for Roger. Yeah, so I was very, very happy for him, you know, and because he was probably the longest serving guy coming through it with us, you know. And it was fantastic for him to get that. Yeah, it was great. It was a great achievement. Yeah.
The next year, 1992, 1993 season, it's probably the biggest year in the history of the club, and also for you personally. You're captain again for the second year in a row, and the team was so strong. I mean, you look at a pack that had Nick Popplewell, yourself, Reggie, Rigney, Victor McAnady. Like, it was incredible to think that we were so strong that we'd finished fourth in the Division 1 that season. So to be in the top 4 teams in the country is an incredible achievement. The AIL in those days was almost mythical. You look at like Paul O'Connell's book. He says his one regret in rugby. This is a guy who's captained the Lions. His one regret is that he didn't get to experience the heyday of the AIL. And I don't think anything speaks more to the heyday of the AIL than the fact that you as captain would take Greystones down to Thomond Park to play Shannon. You'd beat them. But the amazing thing is we had 1,000 travelling supporters on a train which we hired. I'd say that again. 1,000 supporters went down to watch Greystones beat Shannon in their backyard. It doesn't get any better than that, does it?
No, it was phenomenal. It really was. It was tremendous. Yeah, I think John Neal was a lot behind that with Kevin Keys in particular. Get that band of supporters behind us and parents coming down. It was phenomenal. Yeah, but I mean, I'm really sure one of those games too. There was a bit of a. I think Reggie. I think we might have been doing lineouts on the Saturday morning before this game. I'm not 100% sure. It was definitely one of the. Of course. I think Reggie went over and twisted his ankle, so he's out of the game. I knew Macca wasn't too happy. I know he wasn't too over the forwards doing the dummy, just line outs in the concrete. But it just shows you the strength. I think Mark Hogan, in my memory, might have been coming down the train, so we had to ring the train to get Mark Hogan off the train to come. And Mark was playing for the seconds at the time, but again could just adapt and fill it in, which was fantastic. That was strength and depth, but. Playing Shannon down there, it's an experience in itself. I remember the first year, really, the abuse you're getting from the sideline, throw the ball in straight Murphy of lines. It's because I was so close to it, what I mean? It was incredible. Like, and looking down the line and see the passion that these guys had. We had a tremendous pack of forwards, and that was a huge benefit. I mean, Brian Rigney in particular, I suppose. I mean, Brian, I have a lot of respect for Brian Rigney, and he had this wonderful talent Jeremy, if the bigger the game got, the better Brian got. Like if you were playing on a Sunday afternoon, against Kerry's, you forget about it. Brian was off. But the bigger the occasion got, the better he got.
He rose to it, yeah.
Yeah, very, very much so. He was immense. But then Collie Dunn behind us then was very, very clever. Keeping us going forward, get the ball in front of us, really. Just get the ball in front of us, move forward onto the ball, and then once the broken field running, I suppose, I think we scored a lot of tries those years too, because I think teams got tired of having the technique and Brian, and then there a lot more spice did appear for the backs, for Peter and the likes of Alan Keyes and Mick Carney in particular, to and power to make hay, really,
Yeah.
And then trying to get off the field at the end from the support was phenomenal, really.
But if you're like, what was the atmosphere like if you're playing down in Thomond Park and you're looking up and you've got Nick Galway opposite you, or Axel Foley or these guys? I mean,
well, yeah, Mick is grand, but you wouldn't. Mick wouldn't bother me with some of the other animals around. Mick's a good character, Mick is hitch and smile as the fella's own smile, Halby was a tough nut. I remember him. He had a guy in the second row now, and God, I think the chap could be passed away. His name escapes me now for the moment. But they were rough. And I mean, anytime you went and played Shannon or Dolphin and Young Munster, there was always issues in the front row, and there always had to be a big throne. In the old days, Jeremy, Brian was very good at putting the filter through, and even Clive at the time, but Brian, sometimes his boxing was a bit like my line-out throw, not that accurate. No, more often than not, he would land a punch on me, or he'd feel on the other side of me. But there was always that. But once you stood up to them, and it was a common respect sort of thing, the game was let flow after a certain amount of time, and so you went out, it was very aggressive, but as the game got on, people were beginning to tire, but you just did at it. Like, it was just combat, really,
Alan Keyes wrote a nice little piece in one of the club annuals, and he's talking about playing Young Munster away, and there was 8,000 people in attendance, and to get onto the pitch, you had to lead everybody through the crowd almost. And there was boos and hisses and everything you can imagine. You gathered everybody in a circle, and you said, this is what it's all about. If you don't love this, then you shouldn't be here. Like, what was it like going against Young Munster in the killing fields, as they're known?
Or as Mark Phelan calls it, the gardener, get somebody, just get anybody, to get somebody. It was phenomenal again. It was actually tougher than in one way it was tougher in Shannon if they were any better player, but the people right on top of you, and there were it was I presume Young Munster Meal were like a real working man's club, like everyone bought into this, and it was a real parish, so to speak, probably a bit of that Gaelic background as well, but and the abuse you're getting from the line, because they're closer again, particularly me throwing the ball the line was phenomenal. But it was so competitive. You had Paco Fitzgerald, and you'd have the Claw there, you were just so competitive. And then you had Gerrards there, of course.
Keith Earl's dad.
Yeah, what a player!
I've heard Paul O'Connell talking about him.
Yeah.
What was he? He's a special player, was he?
Yeah, he was just so aggressive, and skillful at the same time, and always passionately slaved, just 110% every time, always lead by example. And that's what just something to follow, really, follow. But I have one really great memory of playing at Young Munster. I think it might have been the first year, and we spoke about Brian's inaccuracy of throwing the punch through the second row. The previous week he hit Mark Phelan. He'd hit Mark, and Mark had a very nasty gash over the eye. But Mark started the match anyway, and he was playing against Paco Fitzgerald. It was very early on in the game, and Mark had got hit again, and the eye had opened up. So he had to be replaced. And the referee was a guy called Alan Lewis. I don't know if you ever heard of Alan Lewis. Alan used to play cricket for Ireland. He was very handsome young fellow, and very dark skinned. It was all he looked really well. And he says to me, "Spud, you need to get a replacement prop on." I said, "Yeah, there's one on the way." And we had a guy called Carl Sullivan, I don't know anyone ever heard of Carl. He was an army man. He was a commandant. He was a captain. He was really well respected in the army. He got a great. But Carl was very slim, very light. Jeremy didn't look like a front row forward. And he started running. He was running behind, and Alan turned back and looked at him. And Alan turned back to me and said, "No, Spud, it's a front row sub." I said, "Alan, that is a front row sub." But Carl, he was super strong, super strong, and he came in that day, and my God, I think Paco Fitzgerald, he destroyed him because he was physical, so strong, but. It was just a reaction of Alan saying, no, get him off. It's a front row forward.
Yeah. Very good. Also that year, we'd do a clean sweep, or at least went undefeated against Limerick teams, and we beat Garryowen in Greystones. I heard there was the reason. I don't know if you saw it. There was a photo doing the rounds there of you and Ben Finnegan. Ben was only 6, and you and the Garryowen captain took a picture before the game.
Yeah, Dan Larkin, I think it wasn't Dan Larkin,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So beating Garryowen must have been a real highlight. But I understand during the game there was a 30-man brawl. Do you have any memories of that?
Oh, I think it was a brawl.
Or is that every week?
I think that was every week. Yeah, particularly Clive Bullen was playing in Riggers. There's always a brawl, that game was a brilliant game, and again it was a very soft condition. My only disappointment about that game was Keith Wood cried off. He didn't play.
Oh, okay. You're supposed to play against him.
Yeah, I was really dying to have a cut off him. I really was.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. He didn't play. So it was disgusting, really. Yeah. But I mean, I think that was really up there, one of our best performers. We really sewed it home against them that day, really,
There's a picture of you coming off the pitch after that game, and it looks like looks like you've literally been through a war. There's nothing left. You're just peeling yourself off the pitch. I mean, I
remember the Garryowen coach at the time came into us, and it was a Kiwi fella, and he went around and shook hands with all the Graystones people. It didn't happen. Players at the time it didn't happen that often. But the photograph beforehand was Terry's idea, because we used to try and get a kid or minis to take a photograph, and it was just a way. But it was good. Yeah, it was a phenomenal game. Again, a huge crowd. I mean, the crowd were so important to us because. But I think we really get them going over that day.
There were thousands of people coming down to watch Greystones rugby matches in those days. I mean, the car park would be full. The car would be going. Line of cars would be going back to the tennis club, the roundabout, even at Killincarrig.
Right back. Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Incredible support.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah. And they made a difference a lot of the time too.
You think so? Yeah.
They certainly did. Yeah.
You felt it. Yeah.
Very much so. Particularly against the bigger Munster teams, they certainly made a huge difference.
Yeah. So that season you'd also go on to be named as the captain of Leinster, but I think the biggest event for you personally would have been getting an Irish cap. What are your memories of kind of getting that call up, receiving the phone call?
It was funny. Well, the previous year I played for Ireland B in Murrayfield, and I was captain of that team, and we won, which was fantastic. And I remember it was the 28th. It was the 28th of December. It was a really strange time to be playing rugby, but we were up in Murrayfield, and this was really important to me, actually, and it might explain to somebody when I talk later on about some of the coaches. We were outside for some reason, which wasn't normal, but we were outside the backfield of Murrayfield doing liners, particularly I say again, more liners all the time. And, I looked over in the distance and I could see this very familiar leather jacket that a certain coach used to wear from Greystones, Terry Diaper. And he had driven all the way up from where he was based in Wales on the 28th of December to watch Ireland play. And it just sent me a message that he took the time out to come all the way up here to watch me. He was watching me, nobody else. So that spurred me on. It was a huge lift for me to see him there. We went on and we won the game. But the following week, then they were picking the Irish team to play Ireland B to play England. I just thought I was going to roll over. I must be in the team. I was the only one left out. I was gone, gone. Not even. I didn't even get a phone call. No phone call. But it was against England, and the thing that really upset me more was that Brian really got re-picked to play, and I never played at any Irish level with Brian, and that really upset me because I always played better with him. I really did. He was just an influence on me a lot of the time, with Nick, of course. But I remember we were in Richmond watching that game. I think Ireland were beaten 4-0. They were beaten. And I was actually quite happy then. I didn't get picked. You know? But 90. Yeah, well, I mean, I played for Leinster against Australia on a Saturday, and then Australia were due to play Munster in the middle Saturday, and I was picked to play for Greystones. We're playing Bective in some sort of a game on the Sunday. And I was living, for some reason, I wasn't living in Mix anymore. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the house had gone in Richmond Park, but I was back to living at home. And the mother, I got a phone call on the Saturday around 10:30, and the mother said, "You want on the phone?" And went down the phone, and it was the chairman of the Irish Selectors telling me that not to play for Graystones on the Sunday. Wouldn't tell me that I was starting, but didn't tell me I wasn't starting. But he said, "You're going to be in the squad to play Australia the following week. Don't tell anybody, but don't play the match." So we're due to play Bective. I made a call to, I think, Paul McNaughton, and said, "Paul, I can't play. I have a flu." That was grand. No problem. Conor Sullivan, who was a very fine hooker indeed, stepped in. But I was told on the phone that at halftime during the match to go outside the Bective end, and there'd be someone there to meet you. So I'm sitting in the stand watching the game, the first half of the game, waiting for halftime to come. And Graystones are doing well, and it's a good game, and it's a nice day. So I go out at halftime and standing outside the back doors of Donnybrook at the Bective end, just down from Kylie's. And it was like a scene from a movie, because a big black Mercedes pulled up on the pavement. The back door flung open. Kieran Fitzgerald was sitting there with Noel Murphy. Get into the car, close the door. Car didn't move, and he just said, "You've been picked to play for Ireland against Australia next Saturday. Don't say anything until 5:30, because that's when they're announcing the team. And there's a disappointment in the team as well, because one of your club mates has been left off the team, which was Brian, unfortunately. Brian was left out, which was, again, well, it wasn't great for me. Told me not to go and celebrate. Don't enjoy this. You only have a week." You know, I had a job and everything else, so I had to come out of the car, door was shut, and back into the stand with a big grin on my face, this width, you know, not allowed to tell anybody that I'd been picked to play for Ireland until the match was over. And then all of a sudden, when the match was over, a TV camera appeared and they were interviewing me, and the excitement then in the Bective end, the dressing room, was phenomenal. But there was also an air of disappointment for Brian, because he had been left out. So it was sort of another, but no celebrating thing, forget it. We were back in Jim Doyle's. Jim Doyle's, I don't know, it was like New Year, Christmas Eve. There was that many people in Jim Doyle's. Like even my wife's parents came down, which that wasn't, you know, we had such a night really. But I was very conscious of not trying to drink that much. We're only a week out from playing the World Champions, who had just been beaten by Munster. So I knew there was going to be, you know,
backlash.
And it was such a phenomenal night. But I had to go to work the next day. I worked for Bachelors at the time, and the guy that was doing deliveries was off that weekend. So I had to get up that morning, the Monday morning, go into Cabra West, pick up a truck, and I had to do all these deliveries down the southeast. And on my way through Bray, I picked up Nick. Nick got in the van with me. And, well, he slept most of the way down to Wexford, but we done the deliveries, had to leave the van back, had to try and organise time off to go into camp on the Wednesday, which was the Wednesday prior to the game. You know, so we didn't get much time for any game planning.
Yeah.
You're sort of paddling your own canoe a lot of the time. But we went into camp then on the Wednesday, and on the Wednesday then it was traditionally more of a scrummaging day. You know, you just scrum and alliance. There was no. So we were staying in the Berkeley Court, which was fantastic. You're getting breakfast, dinner, and tea in a buffet. I mean, you're eating food, generally I wouldn't be used to eating, you know. I mean, it's just incredible. But the first thing Nick said to me there, now when you get in there, he said, the first thing you do is go and see the Adidas rep and get a pair of boots off him. You know, I said, okay. And Nick said, what boots do you like wearing? I said, well, those you had a high pair and a low pair. I used to always wear the hard. But Nick said, well, get a low pair off him, wear them, tell him you don't like him, and get another pair and hold on to the other. So this was the scam, you see, before we played the World Champions. But I'll tell you one thing. So I wore these low boots. Then I rang him the next day and told him I wanted the high boots. So I got the high boots, but he wanted the low ones. No. But for the rest of the week, Jeremy, up to an hour before the match, I was trying to avoid it I need extra fucking boots just to get the extra pair of boots. I don't think this is a good idea. Every time I opened the door of the hotel, he was waiting for me. He was in the reception. Oh, yeah. So anyway, it was just to get the 2 extra pairs of boots. But I got them. Anyway,
Brilliant.
That was the main thing. It was a good. And then the other thing was, I think, Brian Robson was playing in the number 8. I think is it Gordon Hamilton was the captain. I'm really sure. And they were calling the lineouts, and they were northern accent, gum shield in at the back of the lineout, calling the lineout to me. And we must have had about 25 line-out calls, and I'm saying, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not. Anyway, sure, we had a great crack. It was great fun, but I was always very conscious that these guys are hurting now, and I knew how competitive Australia were going to be because we got a hiding down on one Sunday. We're not happy. We were not happy, and we're only a line away for us. Really, we're like, and I was very conscious of that, But
like, you're what was the step up like? Because that Australian team, like you said, they're world champions. You've got John Eales, Jason Little, Tim Horan, Michael Lyon, and David Campese. You were hooking against Phil Kearns, a double World Cup winner.
Yeah.
I mean, like, was that so many rungs above what you were used to, or was it? No,
that never really bothered me, Jeremy. Really, and I think a lot of that goes back to probably to my 80s days playing with the team back in the 80s, because them days you were meeting internationals, you were playing against Fergus Tyler, you were playing against Willie Duggan, you were playing against Johnny Cantrell. I played against Kieran Fitzgerald, I played against Nusafora when I was out in Queens. So that didn't bother me. Like what level they were playing didn't really bother me. I just knew they were wounded now, and they were like a wounded animal just waiting for us. And we were sort of, I wouldn't be disrespectful, and we weren't prepared properly, Jeremy, and that's nobody's fault. It's just the way it was at the time. But no, that didn't faze me at all. I deliberately would not go looking to get involved with David Campese because I wouldn't be able to. He'd be too quick for me anyway. But I just knew the competitive streak, particularly Tim Horan and Jason Little in the midfield. I played against Michael Lyon on numerous occasions over in South, so I knew what he'd be like as well. So I had a fair idea it was going to be a rough day.
Yeah.
And Rob McCall, who's a guy who played for Bullers, I have a lot of respect for him. He's a second row, very much like a Riggers type of player, like very abrasive, and he was fired up. And I missed a meeting with him in the Leinster game, so I knew it was going to be difficult. I knew it was going to be very difficult. Yeah.
Was playing for Ireland a goal of yours? Were you waking up every morning saying, "I want to get an Irish cap," or was it just something that happened as a byproduct of your great performances for Greystones and Leinster?
Well, hold on, Jeremy, I don't want to get too emotional here now, but I still driven by another one. So I don't know. And it sounds like a joke, and it really is. And most people, but it's not. I'm still driven, and if I'm out running now today, I still have that dream of mine that where's my next one? I need the next one. I have to get the next one. So, I suppose when I went to, I always thought I could get one, Jeremy, and I suppose I was going through that. No disrespect to Graystones, but the 80s were fantastic times, but they were tough times. And I needed to get away to Australia. I needed to experience something else to reboot me. And then when I get that reboot over there, I got a reboot with the Ireland League. And so, that really propelled me on. I suppose when I got capped for Ireland, I was 28 years of age. It wouldn't happen today, Jeremy. That's the sad thing about it. And I was only in my prime, as far as I was concerned, So, it's always been a dream, I suppose. Going even back to school days, I don't know what it was to the rugby, because I played a lot of soccer and I played a lot of Gaelic, but I never got much advice from my parents or my dad in particular, really. But the one bit of advice he did say to me, whatever sport you're playing, John, it's either the man or the ball. The two can't go past you at the same time. And it didn't work too well in the soccer. It wasn't really working in the Gaelic, but it worked in the rugby. So, and once Nick had, arrived on the scene too, that seemed to propel me, because Nick had something that I hadn't got. He was a bit more disciplined off the field, really, that he, particularly after his experience with the All Blacks, suffering the thing of not getting his first, getting the first cap and then being out of the team for a while. He really dedicated himself getting into the gym, because he said he couldn't scrum, which was rubbish. Nick Popper was a fine scrummager, there's no doubt about it, but he reemployed himself, like, because he was double jobbing at the time because he was saving for a house. He was working at Argos. He was working at Madigan's and Donnybrook, or 7 points for Paddy and Madigan, and he was going to the gym in between, and so it was tough on him. But so that propelled me on to think there was nothing easy. Jeremy, it was nothing easy. It had to be earned. It had to be worked for. And I wasn't afraid of hard work, thanks to working with Pierce Fair all my teenage life. So that's what puts me on to that. From that really,
Amazing.
So I suppose Leinster too was a big step for me, and I got a lot of fun out of Leinster, because I've never really thought about, and I was always Ireland. I never thought about Leinster really.
Yeah.
I had to get to Leinster to get to Ireland, but never. But my first Leinster training session, like, it was just, there was 4 hookers there, and I'm looking at Willie Barnes in particular, who was a class player, like somebody I really, really respected. You had Willie Barnes, he had, what's the other chap's name then? Forget him. No, he played for Belfast. Name escapes me now at the minute. But it was 4 choice, really. I was down the packing order. And during the first 3 weeks training, 3 of them got injured. So all of a sudden, I was off the floor, to once I was in. And once I got in, I was in really. And I really enjoyed my Leinster. It was great to have the comradeship with different players. There was a lot of Mary's guys. That was difficult enough now because a lot of, but I had some great friends there, like Babs Dowling in the front row, like Mick Corcoran was a great, some great pals we made, some great fun, it was a great time. Like,
the next season, 93, 94, we'd still be playing in Division 1. It would be a tough year for the club. By all accounts, like, unfortunately we got relegated, having still gotten the same amount of points the season before when we got finished 4th, but there were some great positives. The under-19s won the Macquarie Cup, which is something I want to talk to you about in a little bit. But on a personal note for you, you got picked for the Barbarians, which is a pretty nice accolade to have. I looked up that team from that match. Front row was Graham Roundtree, yourself, and Peter Gossey. It doesn't get much more gnarly than that, does it?
Well, there's a bit of a story to that one, Jeremy. There wasn't much communications between myself and the club on over on the flight either, like,
Really, from your matches against each other.
Well, there'd been an incident in a game in Donnybrook that there was an Pro played and Mick played, and I'm sure Riggers might have played as well. And we played Munster in Donnybrook, and we were winning. We won well that day, I think, but it was a very, very match, and there was an incident in the match near the end of the game where it was a kick-off. I fielded a kick-off, and I went down the ground, and my head was in the wrong side, sticking out the wrong side of the rope, and I got a bit of a doing from Peter. But it was right in front of the stand, right beside the front of a few journalists, and they had written in the papers, and it was really quite an incident at the time, because I remember being taken out of the ground straight away and sent home. I wasn't allowed to speak to any of the media or anything, and I think my wife, I think, still has a photograph where you can see the 3 studs that started here, ended here. And so there was a bit of tension, and I remember getting a phone call. I don't mention anybody's names now, but I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but I was told, like, really you need to be, letting this go and not making a scene about it, because there could be a day where you're putting your arm around Peter playing for Ireland, so you need to, well, I had no interest, but I know a lot of people behind me in terms of the media want me to chase this thing, and I said, no, look, it happened, move on, like, but then the week after, for some reason, it just happened that myself and the club were picked to play for the Barbarians, which was great fun. And look, we met him on the flight, but we had a bit of a snarl between us, but we got over it anyway. Yeah, but it was funny. We didn't win the match, but it was great fun again. And we actually got paid. Journey was even better.
It was a great team. Like, Rob Wainwright was playing. He'd go on and start for the Lions in '97.
Went forward, and
Phil de Glanville, who was the English captain at the time. So I mean, pretty nice. Pretty nice accolade to have.
Yeah, and Rupert Milne, I think, played scrum half for Wales. He played scrum half. We should have won the game really, and I'd have a vivid memory of Rupert Moon in particular, thinking, keep throwing out these long passes, but I think two of them were intercepted, so I said,
Yeah,
give up that.
That's what happens with the Barbarians, isn't it?
Yeah, he was just losing the run of himself. He need to win the match here first. But it was a great night, great fun, yeah. Very much so. It was fantastic, yeah. I have a lovely crest back in the, a lovely reminder to give you a crest. Which is, which is a really nice thing to have. Yeah.
Very good,
really yeah.
Hey, what socks did you wear for the Barbarians?
My Greystones socks.
Did you? Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. Very good.
Absolutely.
So something I want to talk to you about is your leadership skills. Like, everybody talks about it. Like, still today, Spud, if you came down to Greystones on a donkey, there'd be people laying palm leaves down in the road in front of you. Like, you're so revered. And like around this time, like you were captain a third and a fourth time. No one had ever done that before. 4 captaincies at Greystones Rugby Club, and there was a lot of young players. Older guard had moved on, Nick had moved on, and Rigney had moved on. And you had this Macquarie Cup team that were coming through. Like, you've got John O'Byrne, Gary Brennan, Nick Hanley, Richie Murphy,
good players.
Holly McEntee, Andy McLean. We're all coming through. And I read an article. You'd step down from Leinster.
I did.
To focus on these young guys and put the arm around them and give them the experience that you had in Canada back in '82. Like, was that something that you took on board as responsibility? Like, get these young guys blooded and assimilated into the squad. You took it very seriously.
I do take it seriously, but I don't think I ever sit down and went in that great depth about it. Like, it's just something that, I suppose, if you went back to my early days in the 80s with the club, Jeremy, it was something I was learning from the captains I was playing with. Like, I had some serious captains. I had Piers Power, I had Sonny Kenny, I had Johnny Murphy, I had Tony Doyle. Different personalities, huge personalities and different styles. So I had the best, to pick and learn from. And then I had experience, of course, in Australia to learn from, and then by being surrounded by really better players, really. But I don't think there's any great secret to leadership or what leadership is. I don't have a magic formula by any means, but I would never expect anything to do I wasn't prepared to do myself, Jerome. And that was, Jeremy, that was very, very, one of the things that was always down the middle for me. If I wasn't prepared to do it, why would I expect Jeremy to do it? Yeah. Why would he do it? But, and the hand around around the shoulder was always given to me by my peers, like by the Piers Powers and the Sonny Kenny. So I was only doing what I had learned. And I'd like to think that's still there too, Jeremy, for anybody else who's coming through, because I think everyone needs an opportunity. Everybody deserves an opportunity regardless of what level they're playing at. And I think that was probably Greystone's strength back in the days, that we had such strength and depth. You had that the family bonds were there, as Owen spoke about in his podcast, of the different names of people around the place. I mean, there's a lot of characters in Greystones that I owe a lot outside of rugby to, really, like the likes of, like, people would have been mentors to me, like Pat Toner, for example, and, John Rochford back in Bray, like guys like who, done things outside of rugby. Now, I'm sure if they're doing it for me, they've done it for other people as well. Like, just, giving me advice, pointing in the right direction, picking you up, bringing you to an interview, and all that sort of stuff. So, I was just never, I always wanted to give back the same generosity I was given. And if that could have been on the field, well and good, but it wasn't on the field, I was just prepared to try and help somebody off as best I could. I didn't always live up to that, Jeremy. It's hard. It is hard. But it's something that I would have worked on a lot afterwards, particularly with my time in Liscardi. Maybe we'll come back to it a later day. But it's something that, it's something I'd still be interested in, but that trying to, I'd agree with what Yvonne said in his podcast about what a club should look like going forward. And it's much more than individual accolades or individual titles. It's a community, it's a team, it's everything. What does it look like? And that's, we're all striving to find, I think, really.
It's the culture you build. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And as I said, I've lived through a couple of cultures and some really good ones, and I've been in a few bad ones. But, that's all part of the learning curve, I presume.
Absolutely.
But a great talent coming through there with Richard Murphy, and I suppose that the thing that I struggled with was it was a change from amateur to professional, and I was struggling with that, Jeremy. Being honest, I really was. I didn't really get it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
In what sense? What?
I don't think Ireland was ready for. I mean, I remember reading Galladio's book and what he thought professionalism was, and what it really is, and what it was, what he thought it was, are completely different. You know, he thought it was sitting at home watching TV and going training at night time, when he didn't realise that, you know, that's not what professional rugby is all about. It really is about preparation and your diet and, you know, and all this sort of stuff. You know, I remember actually doing a message for Nick. I won't tell you what the message was, but I had to go and meet Peter Clancy up in the Glenview, Ireland were staying. I'd be finished out of the scene there that stage, and I went up to met Peter and he said, "Come on to the room, up to the room." So I went up to the room and Claude was there and he was smoking away, of course. But he said, "But you'd hate it. You'd hate it." He said, "I have to go and have to analyse the opposition. I have to analyse myself. I'm fucking fed up." He says, you know, so, you know, I struggled with that. I didn't get that really, you know, and I suppose I wouldn't have any regrets about it, but it's just I didn't get the transition from amateur professional was very different for a lot of people.
Yeah, it was sticky, you know? All right. Yeah. Well, like that kind of leads me on to my next question, and that's like equally legendary as your leadership skills were, your fitness is what a lot of people talk about too. Even when I rang you to ask you about doing the podcast a couple of weeks ago, I think you were in your front room exercising.
Yeah.
And like when you were playing in your heyday, did you have a specific regime? Like when you were playing for Ireland, were you expected to do extras? You know, did you have to get up early and do extra fitness, or how did it work?
Well, I don't ever remember getting any sort of a training program from Leinster or Ireland. Jeremy, it was something that I had myself, really. You know, again, I suppose I was never afraid of hard work, so that wasn't a problem for me. My motivation then I learned very quickly that, I mean, it's an endurance sport, you know, and if you can't run, you know,
forget about it.
You're not going to play very well. And if you can run quickly, then there's a fair chance I'll be there before you, you know. And it was very, very simple, you know what I mean? So it's just be the fittest and and even when I'm running, I'll be thinking, well, if I'm running now, is my opposition, is he running or what's he doing? Because I'm going to make it so pretty hard for him before he even get on the field, you know. So that's what.
Well,
I mean, I don't know. That's probably just in my makeup. I did a lot of athletics in my younger days. I was fortunate enough to, you know, meet a guy, Jared, years and years ago, who was who, you know, done a lot of resistance training with me in terms of, you know, just doing your own body weight sort of stuff, and that stuck to me. But really, I never wanted to be second. I always wanted to be warm-up laps. I had to be the I remember passing Johnny Murphy one time. He was just back from South Africa, and I passed him on a warm-up lap, you know, and he wasn't happy. He said, "What the fuck were you doing, Murphy? Where do you think you were going?" But it was just something I had. It's inbuilt, and I still have it. I mean, I've no problem. I mean, I never had a problem training on my own, Jeremy. Never had any issue. I can go and I just do my own thing. Thanks very much. Now, I think that probably got me in trouble as well, because after, when I got my Irish cap, that I went hell for leather doing weights, which with little experience, and I think I might have landed myself in a bit of hot water in terms of what I did damage, because I did have a lot of problems in 92, 93 with my calves. And I think maybe it was that I tend to do more and more and more, and that's not really a good thing. Jeremy, I wasn't slowing down, I wasn't taking my rest.
That's as much about professionalism, isn't it? Like,
yeah, exactly. Like a bull to a gate, you know, and that was it. The bull was getting more angry and just kept going, banging his head against the gate. And I went through a terrible time with my left calf, and Brendan Cuddy was a huge source of support to me during that time, and we struggled. Like, there was times there where I couldn't train with my calf, so I wouldn't train during the week, and then I play match at the weekend, which is very, very difficult, you know. And I used to sit in the dressing room with my legs up against the wall, with the blood draining out of my legs. Wow. There's a redness out there. It didn't look great, I can tell you, but it worked. It got me so far in the match, you know, and then I would struggle for the rest. But eventually, I got it sorted out. And I got it sorted out. But I think that's like Nick had gone, and I was sort of, I wouldn't say I was alone or lost or anything. I just needed a bit more. If someone had got me that second time after, and, you know, focused my professional
guidance, I think
I might have been able to kick on. But sure, look, it didn't happen. So that's what happens. But I don't think there's any great thing about leadership. I just never expected. I just wouldn't expect anybody to do anything I wouldn't do myself.
Yeah,
and
totally.
You know, simple as that.
Nick Popwell's book, he says, nobody I have ever met wanted to play the game as much as Spud Murphy did.
Yeah.
Like, you are so damn intense. Like, when rugby is everything, when you eat, sleep, and breathe rugby, and you know, it's so all-encompassing, it's so absorbing, it's your complete identity. Was it hard to switch off? Like, you go on holidays with your wife, like, were you still thinking about it? You know?
No problem switching off. I know switching off. Once we left the dressing room, unless we have been a really, you know, poor performance and a massive, you know, defeat, I had no problem going in, and we had some fantastic nights in the rugby club of singing and dancing and Vincent, and you know, so that wasn't an issue turning off. Of course, we'd analyze it next day, you know, and of course, like I was very, very conscious of that I did do, Jeremy, that there was a consequence. Like, so if I did have 20 points on a Saturday night, I was up on a Sunday morning doing my best to run that 20 points off before Tuesday came. I wasn't prepared to have the 20 points, or maybe not 20, say 10, and go out on the Tuesday and try and run them. I'd much prefer to have me 10, get some work done on Sunday and get some more work done on Monday. So I was always conscious that, you know, that I need to be right for a certain period of time. But we certainly enjoyed ourselves in the aftermath of matches. Wonderful times, wonderful times.
There's a couple of funny stories I want to ask you about. One is a Floodlit Cup. A drop goal you scored, but I guess it was about how you managed to score the drop goal in the first place, because you didn't expect to play that game, did you?
No, I don't know. You had me there now, Jeremy. I don't know if it was meant to play that game or not. No, I don't know. But the great thing about the Floodlit Cup was you got a couple of points of Smithies after the match, which was fantastic. On a Tuesday night, like, it was great. You know, 2 points of Smithies, brilliant, with your little voucher on a Tuesday night. Then you might go back to gyms and get one more. So it's heaven. You know? And the matches were always very, very competitive. And as there was less focus on them in terms of fellas wanted, like, less stress, if you know what I mean. You didn't get as hot up about them, and the rugby seemed to flow much better in them, and they were great, very, very competitive matches. They were always high scored, and weren't, you know, too worried. They always went for it, like, you know what I mean. And I do remember that particular match because Richard Murphy was playing that day. I'm really sure that day, and maybe it wasn't meant to play the match or not. I don't know, but I do remember I had no boots, and there was a guy called was it Mark Phelan? He had a brother, he played second row for Belleville. He'd been in Australia in '87, and he might have been playing for Belleville. And he said, "Oh, sure, I have a spare pair. You can have them Spud." So I borrowed his boots. And we won the match well now, but I was trying to take a breather behind the ruck. A fair bit out now, and we must have been really halfway. No, it wasn't that bad. I was having a breather, and whoever was, I think it might have been, I don't know who was playing scrum half, just fired the ball. It might have been Paul Deedy, actually. Might have flung the ball back to me. I was trying to have a rest, and I said, "Oh shit!" So I just dropped goal and I went over. And I got great pleasure in having back in man the boots. But the Floodlit Cup was a fantastic competition. It's an awful shame we don't have something like it today, because we had great fun in it. We certainly, and we played some good rugby in it.
Another good story I came across in one of the articles was it was the Leinster Senior Cup, and it was a quarter final against Clontarf. And you got a red card. And the article said Spud Murphy received a red card in the 14th minute of the game for fighting. This was his second warning. How did you get a second warning after 14 minutes for fighting?
Where do I start? You know, I was sent off 3 times in my career. 3 times.
Okay, yeah.
And I was always by the same referee, mind you. It was a bit like Roy Keane getting the card before the match, you know what I mean? Gordon Black. I blame Gordon Black, and a little blame goes to Clive Woolham, because Clive Woolham used to get me in trouble. And that I do remember the Clontarf match, because there was a rigmarole in, and someone had a go at somebody, and I hit the at half, and Gordon Black had this stern chatting to me, and I said, "I get it, Gordon. I'm not going to do it again. Like, I get it. Right." So there was a kick off, and they kicked down the line from the penalty, and there was a line out, and there was a schmozzle again in the line out, you see. And next minute, the flag over the far side was out. You know, the linesman had his flag out, and I was standing beside Clive, and Clive was saying, "You're in trouble now, boy. You're in trouble now, boy." I said, "Clive, that couldn't be for me. I'm not stupid. I just had a conversation with him. I don't want another one. He's obviously coming for you, you dope. But no, Jew boy, it's definitely you. So anyway, the referee, Gordon Black, went over to have a chat with him, and he came back and like the curly finger. I said, Clive, it has to be you, can't be me. I'm not that dumb. Like, I wouldn't do that. So no, the referee sent me off. I was very disappointed because he went to the final that year, and I said I didn't get on the field.
You couldn't play in the final.
No. And my first time I went to the hearing, as you know, I had Ken Ging, which was brilliant. Ging was brilliant in those scenarios. I got away with misinterpretation of the rules. The referee made a mistake. Great. 2 weeks. Fantastic. That's great. I can live with that. And then the second time, I went to 4 weeks. Didn't go too good, really. You know, the referee didn't make any mistakes this time. And then the third time, he said, "Oh, here, no, 8 weeks, you're gone."
Good 8-week ban.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was very disappointing. I'm not something I'm not proud of now because I let the team down, let them step down. But sure, look at.
There's a picture of you in the stands, all right, yeah, and you don't look too happy.
Like
yeah,
this,
that's it, yeah.
But another instance in that match was so funny. I don't know. I mean, Alan Dignan played that day. He was a fine player, Alan Dignan. And they were playing Marys, I think, in the final that day, yeah. And I think Bubbles might have been in my place. Bubbles played in my place. Fine player too, Bubbles, and they say. But there was an instant where the hooker for Mary's lost his boot in a ruck, you see. And he went over to get the ball, to throw the ball on the line out. And he was picking up the ball and standing up. And at the same time, Diggers had picked up his boot in the middle of the field. And through it, now he didn't, well, rumour says he didn't aim for him, but smack. The hooker, I think it was Bobby Byrne, I think the chap's name was, or something. Byrne hit the hooker from Mary's bang in the eye and he cut him over there. Now, people say it was an accident, but with Alan, you just don't know. But it was a funny sort of thing that happened, but it wasn't funny for your man, of course. But we lost, and it was so disappointing. Yeah, it was so, I mean, I really would love to have won a medal, you know, with Graystones. I mean, I know that we won the floodlight, but even the final we played against Ternier when Adrian O'Farrell got a drop goal, like an Adrian played with Graystones. It was a disaster.
94.
You know? Yeah. I do think that's me, unfortunately.
The another quick thing I wanted to reference is you're not going to be maybe you won't be the only international in your family. Your nephew Sean Richardson, who played juniors. He's over in Norway. Yeah, is he going to get a cap for the Norwegian team? Do you think?
Well, I don't know. I think it's only a training thing. You know, he's been in Norway a number. I haven't spoken now since the last time I spoke to yourself, Jeremy. And he's doing okay. He's called the train with him. Sure. I think it's so difficult to get alcohol in Norway. Like, that's what he played because he'd mooch around a bit. But no, he's doing well. He's delighted, sure. And he's just delighted because it gets him out of the house because they're cold as well, you know. So
yeah, absolutely.
He's a good lad, Sean. Yeah, he's a good kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi to Sean if he's listening. Spud, you made your name playing senior rugby for Greystones, but you did play a bit of juniors as well. I understand you even played J8s. Which shows you went from the very highest level all the way down to J8. Like, playing junior rugby important to you?
Oh, it was. It really is. And it was. And you know what, Jeremy, I'd still be playing if my hip would let me. I really would, because I don't think you can ever replace playing. You really can't. And as I said, that's something that would have been, I wouldn't say bred in me, but something I learned in the 80s when I first started. There was older fellas playing the game underneath you, all the way up, even back to the 90s. That's why we were so successful. We had really good teams behind us. And I think it's very important, because when I first started for Graystones, I was learning from, my peers. I mean, when I played my first match for Graystones, John O'Gorman was 44 years of age, so I was learning all the tricks of the trade. Some maybe you couldn't do now, but I was still learning and it's still being taught. And I think that's really important to give it back, to get players, because I think that's a huge learning curve that's been missed. It's been missed, the comradeship of that. It's a bit like going to spending time in a bar with men and having banter with them. It's gone. It's just storytelling and just learning from other people's mistakes. And during my captaincy, that was always important to me, that, we need to go to watch the tour days. We need to go to the matches during the week. We need to help them. We need to support them. We need to be there. And Sonny Kenny and a lot of those captains in the 80s, I would have learned that from, because they would have done the exact same. And would have, like Jerome O'Brien, Mick Dempsey, they all played a lot of under junior rugby, which I think is fantastic. And there's some talented players.
It's lifeblood of any club, yeah.
Absolutely, but there's some players in there, Jeremy, who stayed down there, and he should have been up, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Stay down here. You need to be able to go both ways. But No, and then of course Vincent Byrne and Willie Barnes, I mean, and all that crew. I mean, look, you could never speak highly enough. And the respect you have for them is phenomenal, really, because without them, well, what would Close be? They wouldn't be, really. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's really important. And I really enjoyed that match. That was a fantastic match. And that match was so competitive. The final, particularly against Mary's. I mean, Kevin Potts played for Mary's, Mick Cork, and I actually think, what do you call him? The guy from New Zealand.
Brent Pope was playing.
Yeah, I think he played. Yeah, it was a wonder.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to Brian O'Sullivan, who was an 18-year-old playing this game with you. And I think it was 2002, and you were playing against St. Mary's. I think it might have been a J6 final, or J5s, perhaps, J6 maybe. But he tells me that he said you're the best player in the pitch, but he does remember you fighting Brent Pope for the whole 80 minutes.
Again, it's in my blood, really, but he was a tough nut too. He only had some humdingers against Mary's too, and back in the day, like, it's a team that we did perform reasonably well against most times, but they always seem to have our number. The kind of way in the big games, they always seem to have our number. That really used to torment the life out of me. Like, they always seem to have that last Steve Jemison in the front of the line. I can still see him there, like, he'd be grinning his face.
Yeah. In the late 90s or in 1998, you'd moved to Enniscorthy. What took you down that direction? How come you went to this
is a long story now, Jeremy. I hope I still have the record button. I suppose, as I spoke, like that transition from professionalism to amateur, and I was struggling with, the club had changed, and it didn't change for anything wrong. It wasn't wrong, right? It just, the fit wasn't right for me, and a lot of new kids, new lads were coming on. I'd been in Hong Kong, would you believe, playing in a tennis competition, and I was in a corporate box in Merrill Lynch watching the Hong Kong Sevens, and there was a fella come towards me. I was actually in a company with at the time with Calvin Leahy and a couple of other guys, and this fellow joined us, and he was actually the president of Enniscorthy Rugby Club over in Hong Kong, and he had a blazer on him, and he was more interested in Calvin Lee because he wanted a player coach. And I said, I'm sure, look, I'll go down and I'll play a pitching coach. I might live in Bray. He says, no, I don't want you, Tank. I want to talk to him. So he gave me his card anyway. And I mean, I don't think Calvin had really any interest, but something happened. I got a call when I got home from Tony Enser. And it was just the time was right, Jeremy, more than anything else. I did go down to really retire, but sure, all I did was push me on for another 10 years of rugby, really, And I actually only met Calvin there a couple of months back because he already played wonders in the match. He said, don't tell me you're down in this place, all for that chance meeting in Hong Kong. And that's what it was. Wow. Chance meeting in Hong Kong, really.
And it's funny to see the kind of the journey that Enniscorthy are on is very similar to the journey that Graystones were on in the late 80s, because they've gone from junior club, migrated now into senior status. It's incredible. It must be kind of like deja vu for you.
Yeah, there is a lot of that, and it's a fantastic, and they have a lot of similarities in the club as Graystones have. It's a community club. It would struggle probably a bit more with numbers in terms of the GAA community as well. But my first part of my Enniscorthy days was very much as a player coach, and we had some tremendous days and tremendous fun. The rugby was on a Sunday, which made it a bit more difficult, but we used to get a great crew down. We used to have a great crack. But my second stint with them really was, which really was the important one for me, because I linked up with Declan O'Brien. I don't know, Declan through, but Declan and myself have probably been working together now for 12 years more. But I've learned a lot from him in terms of we were about leadership and trying to better yourself and putting plans in place. So I suppose I love Declan a lot. We bounce so well off each other as when our relationship started first. I wouldn't think was overly it was different, but we've grown, even though we're totally different, we've sparked off each other, So the whole last period of the last 4 or 5 years with Enniscorthy, 5 years, has been really challenging, because like that, it's trying to find a pathway for the people in the Southeast to come through Enniscorthy and play a senior game, and we've been very, very lucky. But then we had a plan in place, which was something I wasn't very good at years ago, with the help of Declan, that we sat down and we saw, let's find a pathway to bring these kids through. And the one thing that we're more proud of is the guys that did win the promotion into the Ireland League were all from Enniscorthy. There was no outside influence in terms of there were guys who probably gone away, like Killian Net gone and played in Clontarf, but came back.
Yeah.
So they're not guys who, just came out of it. So that, but then again, I suppose that's going to have to kick off now again, Jeremy, because we're back, back now, and we need to get back, and it's going to be more difficult for us going forward. I imagine,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's great to see the strength of rugby in the southeast. Look at like Wicklow and Gorey are all doing so well. And,
yeah.
I think it's good to kind of Leinster rugby is so centered around Dublin. So it's good to see it kind of branching out a bit.
Yeah, but there's some important things that you can go back to Owen O'Brien when he's speaking to you about, like the things that I didn't think about. Like if you're working in Dublin City and you want to get back to the Greystones for training, like if you're working in Dublin, you want to go to Enniscorthy for training.
Yeah,
so it's those challenges, and they're going to get harder and harder and harder. I know Wicklow are a common team now too. So, is it getting to a point where it's too many things? I don't know. We better have lesser clubs with bigger numbers playing the game.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a huge tranche of players not playing because they get to a certain standard and these it's very, very hard now to play for fun. And one being, be as competitive as you can be, but go and have a point with your opposition after the game, and
When did you finish up playing, Spud? When was your last game? Probably not finished yet.
I went down to Portlaoise when I was 53. I'm 58 now, so about 5 years ago, and I think I'm going to be the manager of Enniscorthy at the time, and this card system, when you had to have the sub on the bench.
Yeah,
you had to be a front row covering the bench, or else you lost the match. Our prop, Angelo, in Enniscorthy, thought the match was in Enniscorthy, so he didn't travel. So Declan had a great idea. He said, "Murphy, here, we'll put you down as front row cover." So I got on the team sheet as front row cover because I was still down as a player, and he ended up coming on for the last 15 minutes. It was brilliant because we were winning well at the time, so I could just run around the place and throw the ball around. So,
what's the secret? How did you manage to play for literally like 40 years of competitive rugby?
I don't know. I suppose I've been lucky. I have been lucky. So a lot of it's down to luck. Do you know what I mean? Just I never really picked up any major injuries, and I suppose just keep them fit and keep them moving, I suppose, is the secret, really.
It's an inspiration for us all. Yeah. But we're on the homeward stretch now.
Loads more.
I'd happily talk more to you. I want to ask you, what's the toughest match you were involved in playing for Greystones Rugby Club?
These are going to be tough questions because there were so many. But I really always got a buzz out of playing, the Ireland League match against the Munster clubs. And the one that really stands out for me is the Shannon match, really. In Shannon, that first one we won down there, because I think that was a big one for me, really, and even before the match, how inspirational Terry Diaper was on the team and what shape he put on it was.
Talk to me a bit about Terry Diaper. He's someone that you told me about earlier.
Yeah, well, Terry had a wedge action, and Terry spoke to me. It was a hair in the back of the neck stuff, but he was ahead of his time. When Terry arrived first, he arrived at Graystones, we had all, we had Tony Doyle, Johnny Murphy, but he had his pulling around tractor tires, and he was saying these things about living in the moment, and when you get behind the post, always stand up, look your opposition in the eye, never lean over, never put your hands on your hips. If you read them in an All Blacks book today, Jeremy, that's what you'd be reading. Live in the moment. Terry was doing this with us. We didn't really understand what he was doing, but this is what he was doing with us. Like then, you got to really live in the moment, live in the time, see what's happening in front of you. Never let the opposition, as he would say, let them know you're knackered. I don't know if you've ever heard that sign.
Yeah.
Stand up, look straight at them. He had game plans like knock the door, where we just go down. He'd split the pitch in training. He'd say knock the door from the sideline, and we would just go down this channel. Everybody, one channel. It was simplistic stuff, but it worked. It actually worked. But that day before we played Shannon, we were staying in the hotel. I think it made whatever hotel it was, and he decided to have a meeting, 1 o'clock meeting. So we all go into this room, and he had a mobile phone on the table in front of him. Very rare for us to see a mobile phone them days. And the meeting started, and he started shouting away in his words of actions, which was great. And the phone rang, and he picked up the phone. And he started talking to his son, Jason, on the phone. And Terry said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Jason." He's well, actually, of course. It was Jason's birthday. He was 13. Terry started crying on the phone. We're all sitting watching this in the meeting. Hangs up the phone, tears flying out of his face. Now he says, "This is the sacrifice I've made for you, lad. My son is crying at home. I'm crying here in front of you because I'm not spending his 13th birthday. What are you going to deliver for me today?"
Wow.
Well, riggers, I just remember the 2 double doors, boom, just burst open. Like that was the genius of the man, really. And I'll finish up one more story about him too, which happened a year later, where we thought we knew Terry and we were going to, he's never going to pull a stunt like that again on us, because it was the receptions who rang Terry. It wasn't his son at all. Like, it was a girl out in the reception.
No way, you're kidding me.
No, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So we're down in Declare Inn on this Friday night. Fergie Nolan was actually backs coach, and Clive was there, big Clive, one of my great fun with Clive. And we're sitting around the table, and Terry came in and said, "Now, go to bed, lads. Let's go to bed early." He said, "Get up at 6, have a meal, have your breakfast at 6, go for a walk, and go back to bed. You'll get all this better energy, and you'll feel better, and you won't have all, you feel much better shape for the match." And we're saying, "Terry, will you ever go and forget about it? We're not going to bed now, and we're not getting up at 6. That's a no-no." And Clive was really, "Terry, fuck off, bye. Go away." Wasn't going to happen. So anyway, all in bed, Saturday morning, 6 o'clock a.m., the fire alarm goes off in the hotel. The whole hotel is out standing in the car park, the Clare Inn. And out comes Terry with Fergie Noel, and Terry comes out smoking a cigarette. So Terry had got up, went into the toilet in the showers, put on his shower, and had a smoking arm and was strong. And we're all about it. The whole hotel was in Germany. We went out with Bet Young Munster that day, so no one was going to. But that's the type of guy Terry was like. He was just, and to me, he just made me believe that anything was achievable, really. Anything was achievable, really. I mean, my last memory of Terry was like, we went on up to Rogers Place for a pre-season training, and he sat us all down in a little ring, and he asked a number of people, "What do you want to achieve that year?" And I said, it was early 92, now 93. "What do you want to do, Spud?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to play for Ireland, Terry." And I did. And a couple of months later, so I mean, without him, and there was people before him, of course, as well, loads of them, I don't think I would have, made that boom.
Amazing. Yeah, it's great to hear. Terry's son Ben played for Greystones for a little while.
Yeah,
absolutely. Enormous, the size of him. Hopefully he, if he's listening to this, Ben, one day see him green and white again.
Yeah, please God, or red and white down in the story maybe.
A bidding war. Give me your favourite Greystones memories, Bud.
Memory. There's so many of them, but really, I really would have to go back. I think really beating COIM that time to get promoted into Division 1 really was massive, really massive, and it was such that whole period of time. But that win up there to me was fantastic, yeah. And any of the really, they're all competitive matches, but any of the really I always. The Munster matches were phenomenal to play against. The Munster team really were. But they were all great. But they were really the ones that drive you on, really. They were brilliant.
Amazing. My last question. Anybody you ask, you say, who's the best player you played with? Spud Murphy is always the answer. So now I get to ask you, who's the best player you played with at Greystones Rugby Club?
It's so difficult. Jeremy, I don't know really, and I'm speaking as a hooker now, and hookers understand what I'm saying. Like, if you're a hooker and you stand like that and you put your arms around the fella and you can feel the width of your arm, you know what I mean, to a prop forward, some fella you're putting your trust in, it's really important, and there's been so many of them. So I really think the most talented player I ever played with, as in sheer talent, that it just came out of him without really knowing what he was doing, was Johnny Murphy. To me, he had everything. He was just so natural. He didn't have to work at it. It's just so easy for Johnny. It was left or right foot, how much time do I need here? I'll just, he could just do anything. I mean, we had a move in Graystones where Johnny would come in and play loose head. I mean, it worked. I mean, Johnny, what the plan was, Nick would go down with a hamstring. You think I'm joking now. He'd go down a hamstring, go down the middle field, and rub the hamstring. And the idea was then, in those days, referees would play on. Get on with it, play on. So the plan was, don't worry, we have Johnny. Johnny would come in and play loose head. The ball would come in. Ball would be channel one, and when I was hooking the ball, Popman would jump up in the middle of the field. The ball would be thrown to the out half and given straight to Nick, and Nick would run straight down the field, and it worked a peach every time we did it. Never twice, but it worked.
No way.
Worked. So Johnny, to me, was just the greatest. Still is, really. He could do anything.
Yeah.
Nick was a different beast. Nick was ahead of his time, but had to work harder for it, really, because he had tremendous. Once you give Nick the ball, he was gone. Like, he's phenomenal speed, but he had to work hard in the scrummages. So I have a lot of respect for Nick as well. And I'm a big regret to say earlier on was not getting put on an Irish jersey with Brian Ridley, because Brian was he just had an edge on him. That's the better the game got. But I mean, Pierce Kerr, Johnny Murphy, Tony Ward, Sonny Kenny, all those guys that I would have played with, and even less, Victor, Stephen Tully. There's millions of them. Germany have affected my life, really, because they're great pals and they're great players. And without them, sure, look at we wouldn't be having this conversation, because and that's I suppose only when you get a bit older that you get that respect that they're the things that really matter. That I can go and talk to these guys and they say, do you remember that day we had this bit of fun? And so that's really much more important than any jerseys, really.
Absolutely. It's what it's all about, isn't it? Yeah, and it's why we're having this conversation today, because of all of that groundwork. Spud, we've reached the end of our conversation. I'll close by saying that in the 1996 club program, there was a little excerpt on you, and it was just talking about your achievements in the club and your contributions to Greystones Rugby Club. And it said, no doubt that in 25 years we'll still be talking about Spud Murphy. And here we are, literally 25 years later, still talking to Spud Murphy. And I can bet you that in another 25 years,
please God, no,
we'll still all be talking about you.
Yeah, please God.
So thank you so much for coming on here today.
It's been brilliant.
I could talk to you for another few hours. It's been fantastic.
But from my perspective, Jeremy, I really want to thank you, because look, it really, the last couple of weeks, even prior to this, I've touched base with so many players. Just cross-checking things in town and stuff. Because I sit here all day and talk, but it's been brilliant. So you've really reignited my enthusiasm for a lot of stuff that I've forgotten about, really. So thank you for that. And Greystones, look at what can I say? Like, it was a tremendous place to be, and it is a tremendous place to be. I love going there. I really do. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
We hope to see you again in Greystones versus Enniscorthy.
Yeah, please go. I might even get the boots on.
You have to borrow them first.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.